Gather round, bad witches. My name is Jade, and welcome to my Bad Witch Emporium. Today I'm going to be talking about things I wish I knew prior to getting into witchcraft. Okay, a lot of you may be here because you are uncertain about the idea of witchcraft, or maybe you're curious and you are doing your due diligence, you want to do your research. You've come to the right place. And I'm just going to ramble these off. It's in no specific order. It's just kind of like how it comes to me. But the first thing that I want to talk about is forced to being outside the box. So a lot of times when we are raised in a society that we are in, we go by certain guidelines to live, right? This may look like, for an example, going to college, getting an education, and getting a job. Finding that job security, that was guaranteed, but we don't actually have in this economy. This is just an example, right? A lot of our elders, our families go get the education, get your degree, right? Get the job, get retirement savings. This is a very great example of living the status quo. And when we intentionally dive within ourselves, which is what we do when we start practicing witchcraft, it's not this foreign external concept, it's very internal. And when starting out, you might think, okay, if I just burn this thing will happen, or if I do this certain spell, this will have an outcome. But a lot of it stems from internal things such as intuition and also, the alignment of everything, right? Mundane, psychological. It's not just spiritual, okay? A lot of people like to think it's just woo-woo, it's just this concept that science has not yet grasped. It's a pseudoscience or whatever. And the truth is, it is a combination of everything. It is a combination of taking mundane action, everyday steps. You still have to have plans and strategies for your goals. That is super essential in practicing magic. Doing your research, right? Getting deep into the psychology of things and why things, are the way they are. And yes, there is also scientific aspects to it as well. So witchcraft is the combination of everything, and it also is very internal, meaning we have to dive deep within ourselves on a level we probably never experienced before. I remember the first time I was working with crystals. That's how I sort of started, right? I was like, okay, we're going to channel all my energy into this crystal and we're going to get a certain result. And I remember doing a certain meditation, right? The first time I really laid down and just meditated, and the feeling that I had when I started just being present within myself, I realized how much I was neglecting my emotions and what my body was telling me. And it forced me back. I was like, wow, I didn't realize all of this was going on inside me. And it may be scary, especially if you have dealt with a lot of stuff. You've had maybe an unfair hand at life. You've had, a lot of trauma and events happen. You have to at some point face these things. And naturally, you will do that when practicing witchcraft. It might just start as being present, right? When I first started practicing, I didn't realize I wasn't being present at all. I was in my head all the time. I was in the future all the time, or in the past constantly. And what I realized within my practices is the simplicity within just being present, the power behind it, and how much it reveals, right? To quiet the mind, to gain clarity, and to be able to go deep. And not to say as soon as you start, casting spells, you have to do quote unquote shadow work. Not necessarily. There are some things that really require you to go deep within yourself, but I want you to view this as a journey within, and it has lots of twists and turns and all sorts of different paths we go down. I want you to view it as a creative journey of exploration. Okay, this is something, again, we shouldn't be scared to face, ourselves. And sometimes when it's very painful, it's very visceral, it can feel intense. It can feel a little, oh, I don't want to get into this. But at some point, we will go down that path, if that makes sense. But it doesn't have to start today. You don't have to dive into the deep end right immediately, getting down to the root of everything. Sometimes it's just doing something small for yourself every day, a small little spell, a small little meditation, something, one idea to reflect on. And that will lead us down intuitively into things more so. I don't want you to feel a pressure to analyze everything as soon as you start practicing, because that can be very overwhelming, right? The craft is all about a journey, right? We are constantly evolving as practitioners, as people, and we are constantly doing new things, experimenting, going down different paths, and exploring ourselves. And when we view this idea of witchcraft as an exploration, as an experimentation, right? It kind of takes the pressure off of things, especially if you're the type of person where you're like, oh, I just don't want to mess it up, or I don't want to, accidentally. And it's like, when you honor those intuitive nudges, right, to do those things, to trust yourself, it's building momentum, it's building confidence, and you are further exploring yourself in the craft and also within yourself. Another thing that I wish I knew prior to getting into witchcraft was actually how aware I would become of situations, especially in regards to people and people's intentions. A lot of times before I was intentionally practicing witchcraft, I might have like a certain feeling, but I wasn't as aware of what was going on. Maybe these people didn't have good intentions for me, or maybe they thought differently than I thought of them, right? And as we begin to strengthen our intuition and also go outside of the box, right? We're going outside of that status quo just by saying, I'm practicing witchcraft. You start to see different sides of people. And sometimes it's not always the good side of people. It's duality. There's duality in everything and in everyone. When you start to intentionally practice and strengthen those skills, you will naturally see people expose themselves in a way they didn't before. Or you might be more aware of their intentions more so than you did before. And this is, again, not a bad thing, because some things have to be revealed, right? If we stay in situations that are not good for us, that are not good for our mental health, our soul, our well-being, right? These things can have it weighs on us. It's at a detriment to us. So when we are exposed to those things that maybe aren't so good intentions, maybe it's sucking the life out of us, draining of our energy, then we have the choice to do something about it. And that is the beauty as well, is you have a choice. You always have a choice to choose what you want, how to live your life, not by anybody else. It is a very empowering idea because a lot of people will live for other people without even realizing it. They do it to please others, to make people happy, to just keep them quiet, to stay out of the way, or, stay in the shadows. But when you live for yourself and not for others, it is a very empowering thing to do because you are walking your path and your path only. No one else can walk this. No one else can even fathom the life that you live, what your soul truly needs. No one can do that but yourself. And by practicing things within witchcraft and exploring your spirituality, all this good stuff, right? It opens up this empowering idea of living for ourselves and being able to choose. We can choose our values. We can choose our belief systems. We can choose what we want to subscribe to, and we can choose how to live. And again, sometimes it might not be the easiest path, right? Because we're going against the grain naturally. Just by saying we're practicing witchcraft, we are going against the grain, especially if you grew up in, like me, a small town who was very Christian based. This idea is very frowned upon. And it can feel a little bit vulnerable stepping out of that comfort zone and saying, hey, I'm going to do this because I want to better myself. I want to explore. I'm curious and I'm just going to go with it. And then it's no longer about them. It's about you and your journey. So I hope this helps. Again, I just rambled off a bunch of things that I wish I had known prior to starting witchcraft. None of these are inherently bad or good. Take it for what you will. But I do hope that it offers clarity to you in your journey. Okay? Blessed be, baddies. Have a lovely day.